This story follows Colt, a brave stuntman who faces daily challenges on set, dodging explosions and navigating through mud. Despite the dangers, Colt finds joy in his work and has a secret crush on Jody, a talented camera operator aspiring to Hollywood fame. Throughout the day, Colt and Jody share playful moments, but their budding romance takes a back seat when Colt gets an urgent call from Tom Ryder, the movie star he works for. A minor mistake in a previous shot means Colt's face needs to be reshot, which is crucial for his role as Tom's stunt double. On set, they meet Gail, the producer overseeing the production. Before the reshoot, Colt and Jody steal a moment, dreaming of a future beyond Hollywood's glitz and glam. However, tragedy strikes when Colt prepares for a stunt. Despite his fearless nature, the stunt ends in disaster, changing the course of events dramatically. 18 months later, he's a changed man, with disheveled hair and a beard, grappling with loneliness and the aftermath of his injuries. He reflects on how Jody tried to stay by his side, but his pride pushed her away. Unexpectedly, Gail calls him and offers a chance to return to stunt work in Hollywood. She reveals that Jody, now a director, specifically requested Colt for a project. Encouraged by this news, Colt accepts without hesitation. As he flies to Los Angeles, memories of Tom's success and his own downfall weigh on his mind. Upon arrival, he meets Dan Tucker, a former colleague and stunt coordinator, who assigns him the challenge of performing risky vehicle backflips. Meanwhile, Jody focuses on learning a new sci-fi weapon for the film's plot, but an unexpected explosion on set disrupts her plans. Colt watches from afar as Jody tries to handle the chaos, ultimately deciding to postpone the scene due to unsuitable filming conditions. However, understanding the scene's importance to Jody, Colt changes his mind and decides to proceed. As he immerses himself in the action, the loose sand makes things challenging. Despite the team's efforts, the vehicle slips, resulting in an impact with the camera, but the other cameras keep rolling, capturing Colt's extraction from the vehicle unharmed, ending the scene successfully. Excited and unaware of Colt's true identity, Jody approaches to congratulate him. Upon closer inspection, she recognizes him. Although initially surprised, they soon learn that Gail orchestrated their reunion. After the revelation, Jody informs Dan that she prefers any stuntman other than Colt. However, Dan insists that there is no one better than Colt for the job. Reluctantly, Jody accepts Colt on the team. In the following scene, Colt is engulfed in flames for a smoothly executed shot. Noting her renewed professionalism, Jody decides to explain to Colt the core of the film, a love story between an alien and a space cowboy. She explains that due to a tragic accident, the cowboy disappears, leaving the alien devastated with questions. Then she asks Colt what he would say to the alien if he was the cowboy. Colt feels guilty for his past and apologizes to Jody, asking for a second chance. However, Jody asks him to do the stunt again. Later that night, Colt seeks out Gail, confessing that Jody doesn't want him on the project, and asks her to stop raising false expectations. Gail encourages him to have patience. She then reveals that Tom is missing and asks Colt to look for him, hinting that Jody's career could be at stake if her leading man is found to be involved in any public scandal. After this, Colt heads to Tom's mansion to investigate his whereabouts. Suddenly, he is attacked by a woman armed with a katana. The attacker turns out to be Iggy, an actress and Tom's girlfriend. She reveals to Colt that Tom has been acting paranoid and is in constant fear for his life. She suggests to Colt that he might find Tom at a club that Tom often visits, but warns him that he will need appropriate clothing as the club is having a neon night. Upon arriving at the club, Colt adopts Tom's narcissistic persona to blend in. In his search, Colt encounters Dune, a notorious drug dealer who often accompanies Tom. Upon inquiring about him, Don evades the question, choosing to praise Colt for his skill as a stuntman in Tom's films. They end up toasting together, but realizes there was something in his drink, so he begins to hallucinate. Dune's thugs try to kidnap Colt, but he manages to defeat them all. Dune, realizing the danger, rushes away, but Colt manages to follow him and catches him in a cab, demanding to know where Tom is. Dune reveals to him that he was hired by Tom's head of security to keep him hidden in a specific hotel, and suggests that Colt should ask a hotel employee named Kevin to get the key to the room where Tom's is hiding. Still under the effects, Colt manages to find Kevin and takes the key to the room. He enters and continues to hallucinate, but there is no sign of Tom. Suddenly, in an unexpected twist, Colt finds Tom apparently lifeless. He immediately communicates this to Gail, who asks him to stay calm and not to talk to the police. However, Colt decides to report it to the authorities. But when he returns to the crime scene, Tom's body is missing. He decides to share his experience with Dan, but Dan tells him that it might be an illusion. Meanwhile, Colt gets worried when he learns that Jody has decided to speed up production, demanding that all the scenes be done in a short time and in one take. During the filming, it seems that Colt and Jody begin to connect again. At the end of the day, Jody invites Colt to a karaoke party to celebrate the progress of the shoot. However, amid the celebration, Gail approaches Colt with troubling news. She tells him that they no longer need his help and suggests that it would be better for him to return home, giving him a ticket for a flight at 5:30. She also reveals that if Tom does not show up by the next day, the studio will cancel the production, and Jody's career could end abruptly. Faced with this dilemma, Colt decides to seek out Tom's assistant, Alma, hoping to discover more about the actor's mysterious whereabouts. Alma tells him that the last time she saw him, everything seemed normal. However, the next day, Gail called her in a panic, informing her that Tom had lost his phone. Alma reveals that she found the cell phone, but it contains sensitive information that could end someone's career. Then, she tells Colt that she is willing to give it to Jody in exchange for producer credits on the film. Just as Elma is about to give him the phone, they are electrocuted by mysterious men who kidnap Elma. Meanwhile, Gail meets Jody and reports that Colt will probably not come as she provided him with a plane ticket to return home. Jody gets upset, arguing that decisions of that magnitude require her approval. However, Gail defends herself by saying that she thought Jody wanted to get rid of him. Meanwhile, Colt springs into action to rescue Alma. In a dramatic chase, he manages to get close to the kidnappers, jumping between vehicles and suddenly crashing into the kidnapper's vehicle. Both Colt and Alma manage to free themselves from the kidnapper's grip. After this, Colt heads to the karaoke bar, but to his disappointment, he discovers that Jody is no longer there. Meeting Dan at karaoke, Colt explains the critical situation. He has Tom's phone and needs to find out what crucial information it contains. In addition, he also has to find Tom and ensure that Jody's film can be brought to a successful conclusion. Dan contacts a tech-savvy friend to unlock the phone. However, she anticipates that the process could take 2 to 3 days due to the difficulty of the encryption. Suddenly, Colt remembers that Tom has a habit of writing down important things on slips of paper and sticking them all over his house. He suggests that they might find the password this way. They manage to find the password and access the contents of the phone, discovering several disturbing videos. In one of the videos during a party, Colt realizes that the man he thought was dead was actually one of Tom's doubles. This suspicion is confirmed when, in another video, Tom accidentally kills his double in an accident. The situation becomes more complicated when the news reports the death of Henry, another Tom lookalike, pointing to Colt as the prime suspect. Aware of the seriousness of the situation, Colt decides to inform Jody of everything that has happened. Meanwhile, Dan suspects that Colt is being framed and that the real culprits may be after him. Suddenly, armed men break into the mansion looking for the phone. Dan and Colt arm themselves and manage to confront them, refusing to hand over the crucial device. In the midst of the chaos, Colt manages to escape and unexpectedly meets Tom on his yacht, who knocks him out. Meanwhile, Gail meets Jody and convinces her that Colt is to blame for the recent tragic events, but Jody doesn't believe her. On the other hand, Colt wakes up tied to a chair, and Tom confronts him demanding the phone. Then, Tom confesses that his angry outbursts have caused serious accidents in the past, including one that struck Colt. He reveals that a similar incident occurred with Henry after he taunted Tom for not performing his own action scenes, leading to a fatal accident. In addition, it is revealed that Gail orchestrated the whole situation to protect Tom's career, planning to frame Colt for the crimes. In a dramatic twist, Colt reveals that the phone was damaged by a gunshot and no longer works. Tom gets furious, but Colt uses his wits to escape. He grabs some gasoline, spits it at his kidnappers, and takes advantage of the confusion to run, jump into a boat, and flee the scene. Once safe, Colt quickly calls Jody, begs her not to believe anything Gail has told her, and explains the real reason for his disappearance. Watching the news repeatedly and struggling to accept what she sees, Jody is surprised by a figure disguised as an alien approaching her from behind. She beats up the intruder, only to discover that it is Colt. Relieved and excited, she is happy to see him safe and sound. Colt explains to Jody that the accusations are false and that the original video no longer exists because Tom's phone was destroyed in the shooting. At that moment, Gail arrives and suggests making changes to the film script due to Colt's absence, and recommends that Jody take a break at the beach while she handles the rest. Jody, clearly in disagreement and concerned about the future of the film, rejects the idea. After this, Colt and Jody devise a plan to force Tom to confess the whole truth. The next day, Tom appears on set to record an action scene. At the end, Jody congratulates him and mentions that the car scene is still pending. Tom gets confused, but he is persuaded by Jody. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Jody suggests that Tom use handcuffs during the scene to increase the tension and drama. During the recording, Tom confronts two aliens inside the car, but one of them, who turns out to be Colt in disguise, gets into the car, belts him in, and takes control of the steering wheel. Colt presses him to confess the truth about the crimes and the manipulations. Under the pressure and stress of the situation, Tom finally admits that it was Gale who orchestrated the plan to frame Colt. Unbeknownst to Tom, his entire confession is being recorded from a distance by Jody. Meanwhile, Gale, aware that the recording could destroy everything she has built, threatens a set worker to hand over the recording. Jody tries to stop Gale by punching her, but one of Gale's men grabs Jody from behind. However, Jody fights them off. Meanwhile, Tom runs off and climbs into a helicopter with Gale. Seeing this, Colt jumps and climbs onto the camera arm of a car, using it to propel himself onto the helicopter carrying Gale and Tom. Colt engages in a fight with Tom and Gale, who tries to shoot him to retrieve the confession recording. On the ground, Dan and others inflate an airbed and drag it below the helicopter using a car for Colt to land safely. Colt finally gets his hands on the recording. Gale tells Tom to shoot Colt, but Tom refuses, so she takes the gun from him and realizes that it's empty. Colt jumps from the helicopter and lands safely on the airbed. On land, Colt and Jody are reunited and melt in an emotional kiss, ending this heated story with a happy ending.